Hello folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Today is a brutally cold winter's day here in the southern English woodland, and perhaps the topic of our conversation is perfect for this time of year because tweed has long been considered this extremely versatile, very rugged, almost outdoor style clothing, which men have fully embraced and brought into their clothing collections to add lots of positive aspects to the way that you present yourself to the world. Now, I've had a question from one of my patrons, a gentleman called Kevin, and Kevin has quite simply asked me this question, and he says, a question regarding tweed. I was able to obtain a jacket from Oliver Brown in London during the post-Christmas sales. The fabric is from Dugdale Brothers & Co. and I'm not sure how to wear it, and I'm looking for suggestions. Well, just Oliver Brown for a start. They're a traditional sort of quintessential British outfitters, and tweed is something which they often carry in their collection. And of course, tweed, as I say, is something which is incredibly flexible and can be worn in many different situations. I think many people pigeonhole it as a sort of outdoorsy game sort of outfit that, you know, you often associate men going out shooting for game, and, you know, it doesn't really fall into your first thought when you're thinking about being perhaps an intentionally well-dressed man who strides through the city. You might think, well, that's not really the world that tweed was created for. Well, I've got some tips for you today, some ideas which perhaps might allow you to think of tweed in an entirely different way. Now, I've pulled together 5 suggestions of how Kevin can wear that beautiful jacket which he's purchased, and I have some images of the jacket here. And one would say it's a lovely colour. It's got that great sort of olive green colour to it. Initially, I love olive green because it is very flexible, very versatile, as I sit here wearing a predominantly green garment myself. And it has that red check going through it, which again brings interest to the eye, which is what one seeks, I think, in tweed. The reason why it is so beloved is because it brings things to the party, which other items in a gentleman's clothing maybe are unable to do so. So first of all, let's think about how we can employ tweed in our daily lives. Let's make an assumption that Kevin, like many of us perhaps, occasionally work in an office, and we need to be presentable. In that situation, you know, maybe the business casual world, I think tweed brings an element of refinement, which is a real addition to the wardrobe for many people who would classically just grab for a blazer or some other form of sports jacket. I think tweed brings a lot more. It adds a more stylish, polished, and maybe masculine element to a man's clothing. So let's think of our tweed jacket. Perhaps we could pair it with maybe a white or a light blue dress shirt, or maybe even a woolen overcoat if one should seek to do that. But it brings a certain element of class to it. Maybe if you choose to wear it with a tie, I would go for a tie which is in keeping with what tweed brings to the party. A bit of texture, a bit of pattern. So for me, the ideal tie to be worn with tweed would be either a woolen tie or a knitted tie. So something which has a lot of texture, not too formal, not shiny silk or anything like that, but something which has character. I think works well with tweed. Get the colours right and they are a perfect combination. And yet I think it's still quite casual. So if you're in a sort of business casual with refinement angle to it, I would say your tweed jacket may be worn open collared with a light blue shirt, maybe worn with a pair of trousers, again, which has more character. You could go for something like grey flannel, navy flannel. You could go for something totally off the wall, maybe a little bit of corduroy. Just brings a lot of interest. On your feet, I would suggest, again, something which adds to the textures. Something maybe in suede, or something, a brogue, lots of texture and pattern. And it works well because there's lots of depth in this outfit, and it elevates what could be a simple business casual outfit into something which I think has more character and is a lot more distinguished, which is why we buy tweed in the first place, why we didn't buy the navy blazer. We're going for something a little different. Now maybe we are taking our blazer and we're going to a tweed jacket and we're going to employ it in a different scenario. Maybe a smart country look we're going for. Maybe a weekend, away with the wife in the countryside, staying in a country house, hotel, having a jolly good time. Or maybe this could be your standard everyday attire. So for me, the tweed jacket worn in this situation, and I'm being honest, this is how I tend to wear my tweed jackets. I would go for something like a tattersall or a checked shirt, maybe flannel. We're talking about the cooler times of year. You would be likely to wear tweed because of its insulating and woolen qualities. So paired with a shirt, which also plays into that, as I say, a tattersall, flannel, something of that nature, checked, it brings down the tone. It's clearly not formal, but there's an element of classiness to it, I think. When it comes to the neckwear, yes, a tie again. But as always with tweed, I tend to prefer texture. So for me, it'll be a woolen or a knitted tie, maybe something of that nature, And most likely, I would go for something in an earth tone. So maybe a beige, maybe something that you might see in nature, something green. Something which just blends naturally with the colours which tweed comes in. Below the waist, I would be corduroy all day long in an off sort of duty, day-to-day attire. The depth and the thickness of corduroy, depending on how many, the wales that you choose, so the wale count, so the stripes, the vertical lines which make up your corduroy, they're called wales. And the wale count, well, if you have a very small number of wales on your trousers, you can have big, thick wales, big, thick lines. That's going to keep you insulated and warm and very casual. If you have much smaller wales closer together, that gets a little more formal, I would say. It's never going to be very formal. It's corduroy. But you can control the level of formality of your trousers by choosing the wale count. Sounds strange, but it's how it works. And I think, if you pair them again with a very country-oriented footwear, maybe, a brogue, something like a tricker's stow, big, thick, obvious broguing in a country colour, or maybe a chucker boot in suede or grained leather. These are the quintessential country footwear. And in our sort of smart country elegance look with our tweed jacket, we've got it nailed here. So, relaxed weekend, but a little more sophisticated. That's what we want to hit with this look. And for me, this is where you can pair your tweed jacket with some knitwear, because I think knitwear goes hand in glove with tweed. It's just the very nature of these two items of clothing which we tend to wear in the cooler times of year to keep warm. So for me, knitwear worn under a tweed jacket is a natural fit. Now you could go something quite chunky, a big roll neck or submariner style sweater, which is going to keep you really warm when worn under that tweed jacket. And you can choose a contrasting colour so it's nice and obvious, maybe something lighter, beige, if your tweed jacket is darker, or something quite out there, a little bit of burnt orange. Again, something natural in its sort of origin, but brings a flourish of colour to one's outfit. Or if you don't want to go for a roll neck sweater, maybe a crew neck sweater. And I tell you what, if you really want to throw caution to the wind, a little bit of a cravat worn at the neck so that the delineation between the sweater and the jacket is broken by a flash of colour, and maybe something with a little more texture and pattern as well. And I think it works so well because it's blending the casual of the sweater with the refined of your tweed jacket and its formal lines. So it's perfect, really, I think, for social outings on weekends where you don't want to look too terribly formal. And again, on the feet, Chelsea boots, chucker boots, something like that, keeping it away from the dressy, more towards the weekend, off-duty look. I think it works quite well. You're going to cane it if you wear those sort of clothes. Now, it's a cool time of year, all right, when you're wearing your tweed normally. It's not a summer garment at all. It's going to be probably like it is today, just slightly hovering above freezing, so 0 degrees Celsius. So you're more likely than not, if you're going out on the weekend or whenever you're wearing your tweed jacket, you'll want to layer it under something else. And again, I think this is where tweed layers beautifully with thicker, warmer clothing. As we've already spoken about, a flannel shirt underneath. Perfect. It's building up the insulation with those layers. A chunky, maybe scarf worn around the neck, again, keeping you snugly and feeling all corseted in these natural fabrics which are surrounding your body, keeping you nice and warm, with that tweed working well together. And then, over the top, you've got a lot of choice with tweed. You could wear an overcoat, a well-fitted, more traditional dressy overcoat, because again, the tweed jacket, certainly the one which we've seen Kevin wearing, has got classic lines. It can be worn with an overcoat, no doubt at all. But the beauty that tweed has over perhaps some of its other stablemates in a traditional man's wardrobe, maybe the navy blazer, for instance, it fits much more closely. It's more aligned with much more rugged outdoor outerwear. So for me, no problem at all. Tweed jacket and a Barber jacket is a marriage made in heaven, as would be any number of other outdoorsy type jackets. Right now I'm wearing a gentleman's walking jacket by the British brand Gurteen. This would be ideal for wearing over maybe that tweed jacket, or if you want to get the shooting look, for instance, maybe a more obvious shooting jacket, a ptarmigan jacket from Schoffel, something like that. They are going to fit naturally equally as your overcoat. You control the level of formality and the style which you're issuing by the outer garment which you put on, your tweed jacket, but the tweed affords you a much more breadth of what goes more naturally with it. And again, your flannel trousers, your corduroy trousers, your moleskin trousers, thicker, warmer below the waist. And on the feet, again, a country brogue boot. I mean, I've got a pair of Tricker's Malton boots, commando sole, perfect for the tweed. Big, obvious broguing, very rugged, very robust, perfect for a cold winter's day, keeping you, warm and snuggly. But the beauty of the tweed, even when you wear it with much larger outerwear, you never sacrifice style, because when you take off the garment, when you take off your outer coat, the tweed jacket is there, ready to keep the party rolling on. Now, finally, let's talk about perhaps maybe the more formal level, what you can do with that tweed jacket. Let's say fully office appropriate, a business scenario, and you want to go something a little more in keeping with your personality. So you're not going to wear a suit. You're not going to wear what everybody in the world does, that navy blazer, be it double-breasted, single-breasted, but the navy blazer, probably the most worn odd jacket or additional jacket that a gentleman will wear outside of a suit. But tweed can easily stand in for an office formal situation instead of a navy blazer. What we need, first of all, is a dress shirt. So maybe a white shirt, a pink shirt, light blue shirt, one of the three, the holy trinity of gentlemen's dress shirts. And this time, with our tweed jacket, we are going to employ more of a dress tie. So a silk tie, something like that. If you want to go slightly edgy, you can go raw silk, maybe grenadine. You've still got a lot of texture to it, which I think sits probably a little better with the tweed than a shiny silken tie. It just doesn't marry perfectly with tweed for me. So something a little bit different, a little bit grenadine-y. I mean, I've got a hand-woven Donegal tweed tie, which my father passed on to me recently, which has such texture and pattern, yet it can equally be worn with a dress shirt to bring character to it. With that shirt, with your nice tie, then your tweed jacket becomes a blazer in effect, worn with, say, grey flannel slacks, navy flannel slacks, moleskins, whatever you choose, cavalry twill trousers, more traditional gentleman's trousers. It really is filling in for all of those other maybe officey type garments, but you're bringing your own stamp on the look. You can even wear a blazer, a waistcoat under that tweed blazer, if you want to call it that. Tweed blazer now it becomes. And I think what it's doing is adding character to you as a person without being too stiff and corporate, which I think all of those other perhaps office appropriate garments might do. Now, it's not for every situation, I appreciate that. If you're in some sort of big company where, three-piece suits are the norm, introducing tweed may be that step over the line too far. But there are situations, I think, where tweed is just going to bring an element of refinement and a touch of your personality to the outfit, which I think can't be achieved in maybe some of those more traditional garments. So there we go, Kevin. Those were my 5 suggestions of how you can employ your new tweed jacket in many different situations in your life. I hope you have found at least 1 or 2 of those to your taste, and that you can really bring life to your outfits with that beautiful garment. If you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it, subscribe for more, ask me a question, just like Kevin did. Drop it into an email or even send me a comment through this video. I'd be delighted to hear from you. If you'd like to support the channel, you could buy me a coffee, or you could become a patron, just like Kevin. Follow the links in the show notes below to my Patreon pages, and there you will benefit from the additional videos which I produce each week just for my patrons, and a personal dialogue with me should you wish to have that. So, until the next time, Kevin, wear that tweed jacket with pride, and I will see you again very soon.